Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. Another Wednesday, another soft spoken video. You probably had a couple of these in a row if you've been keeping up with my channel. But I really didn't want to continue to change things as far as schedule. So I hope that you enjoy it. And if you don't, there will be a new whispered true crime case this Friday. Now, I wanted to say thank you to everyone that came through. A couple of videos ago, I asked for your help to get to write, I should say, a comment, either sharing your opinion or saying hi or leaving an emoji. So thank you to everyone that took 2 seconds out of their time to put something down and help spread my channel around for those of you that enjoy true crime cases delivered in an ASMR format. I also want to welcome a few new members to Patreon. I am working on this series that kind of connects to my OG unsolved mysteries from history, and it's also a new every once in a while series I want to share with you there. So stay tuned next week for a couple extra uploads over there. Just as I need to spit it out. Just as a thank you for your support. And also, I am working on this exclusive video for members. That it's also kind of related to that series. So, my way of saying thank you and sharing with you not only more personal day-to-day things on Patreon, but also continuing the theme of mystery of the channel. So today I am also going to go back to the beginnings of the channel, and I always mention that the whole idea, I think, or the whole interest or curiosity I have on true crime is because of my non-stopping brain and the need to answer some questions. And the question is, the big one is, what is the difference from a regular person to a murderer? I'm going to say regular because there's no normal standards, of course, but sometimes, the same people, like a regular person, goes through sex abuse, maybe being abandoned by parents, have a history of mental illness, yet they find other ways to cope with what life threw at them. But then there's this other people that go through similar childhood or upbringings, and they choose to do something as terrible as murder to deal with it or to cope with it. So, what happens in somebody's brain that chooses the latter option? Another thing is the underestimating of female criminals. According to some recent studies, what triggers this specific group might surprise you because they're not as shocking as some of the males that we've covered, such as serial killers or guys that decide to end the lives of his entire family, or those horrible cases. But just entertain the idea for a minute. You're standing in a dark street at night. You were supposed to be picked up by somebody, and they're on their way. And then you spot a lady across the street. She looks very not put together. Maybe she's talking to herself. Maybe she's wearing something that, it's not appropriate for the weather. Do you get scared? Do you just blame drugs? Maybe say it's a homeless person? But do not entertain the idea that this could be a violent criminal. Now what if it was a guy? He looks, again, maybe he's not wearing the clothing that he needs for the weather, maybe using too many layers and it's hot. Maybe they're not wearing enough layers and it's cold. Maybe he's even talking to himself. Do you get scared? Does the idea go through your mind and kind of makes you wonder if that person is going to hurt you? Now, there's gonna be some people that will be scared regardless of the sex of this person. But according to studies, most people underestimate the abilities of a woman, especially guys. But let me share with you 3 interesting ladies. Kind of a little bit of an introduction to what they did and how they connect in the end, making women some of the most dangerous criminals. You probably know about Aileen Wuornos. I don't remember if the video I shared about her is still up. I was pretty sure I had some issues and maybe was even deleted. But if you want any in-depth video about any of these 3 cases, although I'm pretty sure I'm gonna share one for sure of these cases, let me know in the comment is known as America's Monster. Her face is all over Netflix, and she looks a little scary, if I say so myself. I never watched that documentary because there is something in her face, her demeanor, or that picture that they use that really is unappealing to me to click on it. It is one thing if this was a scary movie or a horror movie, and another thing is knowing that that's her. She was real. But in case you didn't know, Aileen had a rough childhood. Her dad was at some point a convicted sex offender, and he ended up hanging himself in prison. By that time, she was moved with her grandparents, and, well, her grandpa would beat and rape her for years. Again, assuming you know this story, in the end, she murdered at least 7 guys between the year 1989 and 1990. Now she would leave the bodies along the Florida and Georgia highways, so she wanted them found. She was arrested in the year 1991, and she said initially it was in self-defense because she was a prostitute and she was often abused or assaulted by this man who wanted to go a bit too far. But she was tried and convicted for one of the murders. But then she later confessed to 3 more. Eventually, she confessed that she killed them for personal gain and not self-defense. She was diagnosed during the trial and the investigation. She was diagnosed as a psychopath with a borderline personality disorder. However, this is, take it with a grain of salt, but before her execution, she said something along the lines that, she said, "I'm competent, I am sane, I am trying to tell you the truth. I hate humans, and I would do it all over again." She was then executed October 9th, the year 2002, at the age of 46 years old. There is so much I want to say about her, but I think it's important to look at the 3 cases and come back to the experts' conclusion. The ice cream killer. Now, this is the one that I want to cover for sure because it is insane. Even the name, the ice cream killer, sounds sweet. Estivalis Carranza was a pretty interesting girl growing up. And she had a tough childhood as well. I'm not gonna go into details, but she had these fantasies since she was a little girl about killing her dad. Kind of related to Aileen, if you ask me, but when she grew up, she moved out of the country, and that, according to some experts, saved her dad's life. She married Holger Holz in the year 2002, and they moved together to Vienna, Austria, where they opened an ice cream parlor. Their marriage was pretty good, but 6 years later, they had grown apart and they got a divorce. However, her husband, Holger, didn't want to move out of their apartment. He wanted to end the relationship, but he didn't want to go somewhere else to pay rent, to put it in a nice way. So one day, Estivalis decided that she had enough from this guy who was apparently very cheap. So he was sitting at his computer when she came from behind and shot him. And now, again, 2 years later, she killed again. This time, her boyfriend, Manfred, who admitted that he cheated on her or was cheating on her. Didn't get that far there, but this time she decided to wait for him to fall asleep and ended up shooting him. No, she's done this before, remember? I mean, she's getting away with the murder of her husband or ex-husband. So she decided to do the same with this guy. She cut his body into like small pieces, and he stuffed the wall space, or kind of sealed the pieces into the wall of the ice cream parlor's cellar. Now, for those of you who know what a cellar is, for those of you who don't know, I want to build one myself here, but I'd have to cut into a mountain. She had this under her ice cream place, so it was dark and had a little bit of humidity, still was pretty dry. It had some kind of a pipe for exhaust. It was a kind of what we call here a root cellar. But it was the perfect temperature. It was the perfect place to hide a body. But later on, the bodies were found by a handyman while he was renovating that spot. At this point, Estivalis was 34 years old, and in her defense, she said her partners demeaned her. Which, I mean, I get it, but doesn't this happen everywhere? To some people? I think so, but I don't think they just go grab a gun and shoot them in their sleep. But maybe that's just me. She was convicted on November 22nd of the year 2012 for the double homicide. Now in her case, and that's why I want to cover this case in depth, she was sent into this mental institution where she is going to spend the rest of her life. According to prosecutors, she wasn't really unstable or mentally ill. She was ice cold, and she was often referred to as a ticking bomb. Now in this case, she continued to give these excuses as if they made sense. Now, they make sense as far as why she felt the way she felt. But you cannot go to a judge and say, well, this is my excuse for what I did. I don't deserve anything bad happening to me because they were just minis. That's not how it works, thankfully, because otherwise, if every time we have an excuse to, feel, well, every time somebody does something that hurts us, that gives us the power to hurt them in this way, we'd have a smaller number as far as population of the world. And now let me finish with this third case, and we'll talk about similarities and the underestimating nature of people towards women. Now, this case, if you've never heard of it, it might change your life, I'm telling you. Because you're not gonna believe how crazy this case is, but it is often referred to as little old lady killer. Now, when she was finally arrested, the police couldn't believe it. They were looking for a man, a very strong man who happened to be a serial killer. Eventually, she admitted killing numerous women in Mexico City between the year 1999 and 2006. You want to know the number? Between 24 and 49 victims. Now, that's not the craziest part, okay? She was actually convicted and sentenced to 759 years in prison, which is so stupid. Well, I'm not gonna go there. But the way that she worked around her victims was that she posed as a welfare worker. And that way she would gain the victims' trust. She would go inside their homes and then strangle them with a wire, a piece of clothing. I think I even read a stethoscope. I mean, she would use whatever. When she was asked why she did what she did, she said that because of her mom. She had an alcoholic mom who was very abusive, to the point that she would sell her daughter to this guys, and all of that was for beer. So her name mention, but her name is Juana Barraza. Okay. I mean, your mother is telling you for a few beers. It's kind of a lot, really, to take in. But knowing that this guy is what assaulted her. Now, in case you didn't know, she was a lucha libre wrestler. And in lucha, there's two kinds of people. Técnicos, who are the good guys, and rudos, that are the villains. She referred to herself as the rude to the core. She always stated how much she hated her mom. Now we see in these three cases problematic childhood, and I'm not even problematic, but abusive. I don't even know how to refer to this really, because I think as parents we are entrusted to care for these kids and to care for these children, that not only to raise them to be good people, if anything, if everything else fails, if we can raise good people, they'll find their way. But to know that the people who were entrusted with their care and who were the ones that were supposed to protect them really messes with your head. But they're not alone. There's a lot of girls that I know that had a pretty I don't want to say similar, but very much relatable stories to this. Yet they did something completely different. Now, some of them just want to make sure you know that they're not crazy. They're completely sane. They're doing it because of this, as if that was an excuse. Now you're probably thinking, what about mental illness? Well, I was reading this article about that is kind of connected to this. There's this doctor, I think her name is Naila Simali, probably mispronouncing her name, but she was talking about how schizophrenia is often found in these cases. She also explained that even though it's present, it doesn't mean the same thing in every single case. Many types of schizophrenia, actually most of them, according to this doctor, are not dangerous. But acute cases, most of the time, are underestimated by the authorities and end with a tragedy. But how can you tell how they are different? What's an acute case? Well, fear of persecution, being paranoid, hallucinatory psychosis, fear of persecution or being poisoned, or having violent reactions. Those are some of the characteristics that you would encounter in an acute case, according to the doctor. Now, this doctor, and I'm gonna look where her name is because I wrote it down and I can't even understand. Yeah, it's Neila Saime. She's a true expert. I think she's from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. And she's being called for the craziest and the most gruesome cases ever, to be the one to determine if they are sane or not. So she explained a little bit of the process, and I thought that this was very interesting and something I had no idea was optional, at least in some cases or countries. I assume it's probably the same way here, but don't quote me on that. Apparently, when you are the expert called to determine if a person is sane or is not, the first thing you want to do as a professional is to talk to the person. However, they have the option to talk to her or not. Now, even if here in the States it's mandatory for this person to see the psychiatrist or the expert that will determine their sanity, how can you make somebody talk? Or how can you make them tell the truth? So in the end, she said that she often has to decide by analyzing the evidence and the timeline. She also pointed out that you can see similarities in these three cases that I shared with you today. Now, if you're thinking that that's it, let me share with you about 5 other cases that are typical of violent female criminals. Now, Karla Homolka, who was later on, diagnosed with the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome. But I don't know if you remember, she was this Canadian serial killer and rapist. She helped her first husband, Paul Bernardo, rape and murder 3 girls, including, listen, this is the kicker, okay? Her younger sister. And this is the worst part. She was convicted in 1993, but then she was released from prison in 2005. You probably heard about Diane Downs. I feel like her face is in almost every true crime channel. But if you remember her, she shot her 3 children and herself and then drove to a hospital saying that a guy attacked them. At her trial, prosecutors said she wanted to continue a relationship with a man who didn't want children. So she was diagnosed with severe personality disorder, and she was sentenced to life plus 50 years. Now, Beverly Allett was convicted of killing 4 children, attempting to kill 3 others, and causing severe bodily harm to 6 more. She committed her crimes at a hospital in Lincolnshire, England, where she worked as a nurse. She was convicted and given 13 life sentences, and she's confined to a secure mental hospital. Now, Jane Andrews, in the year 2000, was a former royal dresser to Sarah, the Duchess of York. Jane Andrews murdered her boyfriend after he refused to marry her. I mean, I would take that personally, but apparently she was later on diagnosed with borderline disorder, a condition that is, it has like this emotional fluctuations, lots of anger and violence. But then she was released from prison and now lives in Lincolnshire, where she grew up. Well, happy endings for wonderful people, right? And then Andrea Yates, the schizophrenic, depressed, and psychotic mother of 5 that drowned all of her children in a bathtub. She was initially sentenced to life in prison. She was later retried and found not guilty by reason of insanity. I mean, yes, you have to be insane to kill your children, I'm sorry. Schizophrenia may produce severe confusion about reality, according to our expert, which means that it raises the risk of violence among women. Okay, well, yeah, good. Awesome explanation. Now I can go to bed and sleep better knowing that it's fine. I mean, I don't want to end this video in that note, though. I do think that mental illness, if you've been following my channel for any period of time, you know how deeply I care about people that have some kind of a mental illness. I have one myself. I have anxiety, and it's not crippling anxiety. It's not that I have it every day. Thank God I don't have it every day. But I have episodes when I can't take it anymore, and then all of a sudden it just comes out and I deal with it. It's typically, I call it my sciatica pain because it's like my sciatica pain. It comes, I feel it for 2 or 3 days, and then it goes away until next time. It could be 6 months, could be a year, could be several years. So I'm not throwing shade or anything at people with a mental illness, but can we all agree that this is some of the worst of the worst? We're talking about committing crimes against children here. I mean, and you know what the scariest part is of this? I am looking at their pictures. I have my notes in my notebook, and then I have their pictures in this article, and because I'm an old schooler and I like to read paper things. And no, I'm not that old, but I still don't mind. Really, I like to touch my books and my magazines magazines, and in this magazine, by the way, it's what is it? September issue of ID. And really, this whole video is based in this article about this professional, this doctor, that was discussing how dangerous really female criminals are. And when I look at these pictures, okay, this Andrea Yates, Google her name right now and look at that picture and tell me that you think she's able to drown 5 of her children. Now also look up on Google Beverly Allitt. She killed 4 of her children. 4 children, and then she attempted the other 3. She's the one that was a nurse. Okay, look at her. I mean, if she was my nurse and she came and said, I am going to inject you this, I don't know, antibiotic, I would totally trust her. Okay, Carla Homolka, well, she looks a little creepy in the picture that I'm looking at right here. But Juana Barraza, I mean, she is an old lady. I would think that she's probably needing something at her house. Estivales Carranza, the ice cream lady, she's extremely beautiful. She's fit. She has a pretty face, beautiful eyes. You know, in the picture here, she's wearing makeup, and you know, she looks like a put together person. Now, Aileen Wuornos, I can't say the same thing, 'cause she always looked kind of out there for me, but hey, I would say 99% of all these pictures I'm looking at right now, they scream, I am a normal lady. I would never do that. So I think that's in the end why they concluded how dangerous female criminals are. I think even in 2021 we're still underestimating the power of a woman, especially a determined one. So, what are we doing here, really? Why are we still judging? I'm including myself in that because of their faces, how they look like, what they're wearing. Where do we meet these people? I really don't know how that's even possible today. I think we can conclude with, you never know. And you have to watch out for yourself. And you have to watch out for others. No matter the sex of the person. The gender, I should say. And such a underestimated part of true crime when female criminals, when you share the stories, you can tell that there is some kind of evil that belongs to them in specific. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you have any requests about any of these cases, please also leave them down below so I can share them with you. I really enjoy doing this kind of research where it encompasses, you know, different people going through studies, experts. I think it kind of helps us, the people that like to consume true crime, because it gives you a different perspective when you know these things beforehand. thanks again for being here today, guys. I hope you found this interesting. And if you did, don't forget, leave a thumbs up and let me know you stayed until the end. I'll talk to you guys in the comments and see you back here on Friday for a whispered true crime case.